uncovering the light. Guess with solid minds, no tales of the strange. In Sasquatch Secrets, they'll begin to rearrange. Truth's the vibe, we're on a quest. Look beyond the trees, what do you see? Factual stories redefining history. No myths, no magic, let's break the mold. With every word spoken, the wonders unfold. Footprints in the snow, not just a myth. Data and research was sift through the pit. Tales of a creature, but science leads the way. Nikki's quest for knowledge, come join and stay.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Secrets. I'm your host, Nikki Colon, and welcome. Welcome to the house. Looks like, woohoo! It is just going. Look at that. There's Jeremiah and Henry and Jen and Sandra and Jay, Sharon, Mrs. Trackway. There's Deb. And who else? Robert and Duvin. I see everybody. Thank you for being here. We are going to have a great show. One of my guests isn't here yet. I have a feeling he'll pop in a little bit later. But until then, I have my buddy.
Jasmine.
Oh, yay, Trackway. You've been putting out so much stuff there, man. We've got to keep up with all your videos. It's great, though.
And still chasing or preparing to go out again. So,
are you? When are you guys heading out again?
I'm going to be going solo this week for about 5 days.
Oh, well, that's a big one. That's long. That's a long time to be out there. I really wanted to go out at least another 1 or 2 times. The weather up there at that elevation, it's in the 30s at night, so it's already almost getting too cold to be up there for very long. Although I did order a new tent heater, but it won't be here till I think it said the 20th or 22nd. So I don't know. I might miss my last windows for staying overnight out there. So this summer went by so fast for me, and I know everybody else kind of agrees. You have been so busy, you, Jen, Deb, going up there to New York and, going out to all those areas and the festivals that you guys are attending. It's awesome. I wish I could have been there for the Whitehall one for sure. See if I could make that happen next year. I don't know. I got a lot of things coming up in the next year, so we'll see how that goes. But let me move this here. And there's Kevin Harder. Good to see you. Let's see. I'll put us like this. How about this? So tonight I brought Bill on so that we could talk a little bit about protocols and tactics. And Jonathan, hopefully, will get to join us a little bit later, Sasquatch Wizard, who will be my other guest. But you find that there are some groups out there. Are you getting feedback?
No, I'm good. I'm just here. I just heard the neighbors or something outdoor next door.
I don't know if it's me or... No, I don't hear it. I don't know. Let me know, you guys out there, if you're getting feedback. But I already lost my train of thought. So a lot of groups out there, organized groups, are there is feedback, Jen? I thought I was hearing some feedback.
Is it coming from me?
I think it's coming from you. I don't have anything but this going.
How about
Because
now?
I was hearing myself twice.
Is that better?
That might have done it. I don't know. I'll get going again and we'll see if that worked. Okay. Okay, Jen. Thanks. So let me make sure I'm in the right page here. Before we move on, can you believe the year has gone by? We are coming up to the memorial of October 17th, when we lost our good friend Joe Schneider. And there has been talks about possibly having a memorial show for him, but I don't know about that. I don't know if anybody's going to organize that this year, or if we're just going to, all get together and join in a live somewhere. So that could be in the works. But we miss him. Everybody misses him. We all still talk about him this entire time. You got to go to his site recently, and so I think that keeps him alive in all of us, and we love
And
him.
Molly did a beautiful celebration of life for Joe too.
Right.
That was very, I'm very honored to be able to witness that.
Yeah, exactly, Kevin. Here's to Joe. We love him, and we know he's down there looking over us, saying, "You silly, silly people." I'm sure he's up there laughing at us. So we love you, Joe. And I just wanted to make sure that Brent was thinking about him the other day, and I was like, "You're right. It is coming right around the corner." So there we go. So research. A lot of us are calling ourselves researchers, or our groups research, right? At the end, the BFR organizations and researchers and investigators. But some of us hold that term research a little bit higher in regards to protocols and tactics that are obtained for research. That means data collection. And some of us don't do that. Some of us are strictly kind of like me. I go out there, I do videos, I do audio, but I don't do like massive amounts of audio. I have one little recorder just in case something happens around me. But, that's pretty much my extent, because I can't sit there. It's hard enough for me to listen to 10 hours, of audio, let alone oodles and oodles of that stuff. But I know there are many, many out there who are dedicated and know how the proper way of throwing that information into Audacity, into all these other programs that help you really find that audio that's unusual and dig deep into that type of research. And that we need more of people who are, 'cause those are the people who are going to really come down to coming up with that information, that evidence that could make the difference, right? It could make the difference coming on.
And getting
So
that stuff and getting that
go ahead.
material cataloged, if I don't think people realize how much is not cataloged. And I'm not just talking about Sasquatch, and I'm talking about, whether it's an owl or a fox or any bird out there. A lot of
Yeah.
it's not cataloged. And really, if you have a good clip and it turns out being, I don't know, let's say, a saw-whet owl or something, you should be, sending that stuff in, because the people that are out there relying upon those programs to help identify, um, you know, even though it's not a Bigfoot variable, the ability to remove a variable is just as important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So we have all this stuff we want to do, and then we have all the data. But do you think that groups should have protocols that where they need to follow certain standards every time they go out? And should those protocols be shared? Should big groups be talking to each other about how they're collecting data?
Well, I think groups should be talking to each other. You know, that's actually a very good question for Mrs. Trackway, who went on about one day as we was coming back from Florida, talking about the standard of collection and how there
Mm-hmm.
isn't a set standard of collection. And I agree with her. There needs to be one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's and then when you get into sharing data between groups, it gets to be a little bit kind of messy when you start talking about, just a little bit, because of data transfer, how they're maintaining their information, as opposed to how you're maintaining information, and getting that handshake in between the two of them, to
Mm-hmm.
where they're talking
Yeah.
back and forth. That's somewhat of a complex process, but at the same time, you do have good people out there that are telling you or showing you um, how to go about collecting, um,
Right.
how the proper procedures. And when Jonathan gets here, I mean, we watched Jonathan pull a couple things up off of my truck, and the way he
Uh-huh.
did it was just amazing. Brent captured how Jonathan did that out in where the heck were we?
Cascades.
The Cascades. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah.
He showed how Jonathan did that in the Cascades, and how detailed oriented Jonathan is. Now, for me, um, I have to turn, when it comes to uh, detail like that, I have to turn to Mrs. T, because she's 10, 20 times more times detail oriented than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I'll take, you know, what I clean with a broom. She'll get the toothbrush out and find the very small, fine details.
Yeah.
So,
Um, uh, that's where, I think it is important that I think we're also going to run into a little bit of ego while that happens, because
mhm.
who's going to say my way is the best way? Do it this way. And people are going to have their own way of doing things. But of course, scientifically, there has to be, a certain way of doing these collections. They have to be clean, so to say, of
Mhm.
contamination. They have to be held a certain way. Something has to happen with them, because now this little slide I have up, it's just about data collection, and I've only changed a few of them. This was a general data collection slide. That should we be really following these types of methods for collecting evidence? Forms and questionnaires. Yeah, maybe we should have some general forms and
Mhm.
questionnaires when we are talking to um, uh, encounters, people who have had
Yep.
encounters. that way they're kind of the same. Now we have the BFRO, who does have their general, thing out there, and they send people out to go do interviews. You've got, I think NAWAC, the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. I think they
Yep.
have their own thing. I know the MABRC has their own style of collecting data. So I think if several of these bigger groups, I don't know if the Olympic Project has it, I don't know who else out there, other groups would have this. I would assume like the what's his name? Will Jevning's group probably has some type of protocols in place to take interviews. So, but I can imagine a bigger group created to come up with some type of form, to help everybody be on the same page, to ask the right questions. I think that would be an amazing group, as a matter of fact. If you had the leaders or founders of these huge groups out there on both the West Coast, East Coast, the Gulf Coast, all over, to come up with, some type of standard saying, hey, if we're going to ask people about their encounters, it should have this, this, and this in there, no matter what. And we know that these type of things help, like with the mapping project, people putting their information into one place. But that's them entering their information. It's not really an interview style. It would be that form, that questionnaire that they're filling out.
And that also goes into areas of specialization. I
Yeah.
I would not be a good interviewer. I would not, because for me, an interviewer is somebody who is well adapted, active listening, um, seeing information, seeing what they're presenting from you or what they're presenting. Are they reliving it? Are they seeing this or whatever? A lot of the stuff that Steve Coles talks about,
Right.
standardized collection, whether it's DNA or it's DNA or
Hair, poop, whatever you're
hair
going
and
to
stuff like
collect.
that.
Yeah.
Some of your big guys that really I like a gentleman by the name of Mike Ann who teaches how to collect it, how to collect the next print, and he doesn't tell you what to collect, but he'll tell you how to do it in a forensic manner.
Yeah.
Somebody like Kevin Harder, which I believe is a DNA specialist, correct?
Um
Or
well
is
he,
well versed
yeah,
in
he's
DNA.
well versed in all that
The stuff that
DNA.
he could teach about collecting it, you know, and that's one of the things too that um, there's a lot to learn,
Yeah.
and learning it out in the field can be bad.
And we can learn. We can all
Yeah.
learn from that. There's many things I've learned from every time I go out with somebody new. I'm like, oh, that's clever. Why didn't I think of that? Type of moments happen a lot. The
Mhm.
more you go out with different people. And uh, Kevin says, not a forensic expert here, but thanks.
You're welcome, Kevin.
So, but that's the kind of stuff, that kind of goes into my mind when I'm thinking about those out there who are collecting this data,
Mhm.
because, I've said it before, make sure you have your T's crossed, your I's dotted, where you're going to send your material and, your evidence, because it doesn't do any good just sitting there, half-lifing itself away. And what if you really had something?
Right.
It's I think that probably happens more often than not, that people collect and have hopes for that stuff. But unfortunately, to really get this stuff tested, it's just out of reach for most people to be able to put $2,000 out,
Mhm.
3,000 to have hair tested. And there really should be more sources out there, at least in aspects of hair, that there was a better way we can get, you know, samples to people who can identify the hair. Cindy Docent, more of those type of people
Yeah.
who have, she's taught herself, you know, but over many, many years. And it would be nice. I think that would be a career almost for us Bigfoot people, you know, if
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
was out there to dedicate themselves to learning about this hair sampling and
Well, right now
identification.
you've got is it Darby Orcutt? Did I say that
Yeah,
correctly?
he's got his little study going on that you can send
Mhm.
him stuff. How long is that going to last? How long
Yeah.
is that study going to be around, though? You
And
know,
given
I'm
that
sure.
situation, like right now with the hurricane, um,
Yeah,
is he able to take samples and stuff like that?
right.
So,
So there's a lot of things to consider, you know. If you keep going down the list, oral histories, you know, all these are type of collections. You know, you have to think about the indigenous and First Nations people and their part, combining all types of people with their research, online research, you know, and the social media part of everything, because it all plays a part, and I guess it's all part of this data collection. So, and archiving, you know, you
yep.
have like Todd Prescott, you know, Thomas Steenberg, who is amazing at his collection of data, and um, how organized he is with that aspect of his
Yep.
research. And I mean, he's got logbooks with just numbers, and you tell him, well, what's this? And he just goes right to the file, pulls it out. Oh, that's the Minnesota
Yep.
Iceman file, or that's this file, and that, you know, amazing, just
And
amazing.
and
But
again,
how many
that's a
people
secret
do
art,
that?
being able to catalog things not only in
Right.
a way that's easy to find, but also in a way that's easy to communicate to the
Mhm.
next person. That that is in of itself, a piece of art that people don't really realize. And Thomas
Yeah,
has really set the bar high on that one.
right. I feel very privileged that I was able to sit there and go through, I mean, carte blanche, go through all his
Mhm.
evidence and photos and things where we're like, oh, wow, you know, um, pictures with Renee DeHinden
You know,
and just one after another from symposiums that have went back for years, all organized, dated, names on the back of the photos. It just super, super. You could spend days there, you know, and I only spent a couple of days there, but it was an amazing experience, and I hope I brought a little bit of that to you guys to show you some of the stuff that he had of correspondences and all of that get up. But I sent a message to Darren Lee of the MABRC and told him I was going to be using or talking about some of the protocols that he has for his group and how he kind of organized it. And you guys can go to squatchopedia.org. It is a great source to go
okay.
through for examples of this type of stuff, protocols, tactics. He's got all the hoaxes in there. He's got, if you're looking for a specific researcher and they're popular, it's in there. You know, he's got authors and books and prints. He's got a list of prints. You can just click and it'll pull up the print for you. So that is something that you really should. I have that on the top of my my desktop over here. You know, it's just a click away if I know I need to research something. Usually Darren has it on there. So in his list, they have protocols for stuff like call blasting. And call blasting is something that it's kind of debatable, right? Some
Yeah.
people think it's harassment, that you're harassing, you know, the animals, the wildlife, stuff like that. And I can see that. I can totally see that because you're playing this, you know, decibeled sound out through the forest. But what's your thoughts on call blasting?
I not very big on call blasting or calls. Um, you know, my background comes from deer hunting over the years, and yes, I've had experience in getting deer to react with calls, turkeys as well. Um,
Mhm.
but with the deer, you know, they come in so fast, and you don't have much reaction time, or they're especially if they're younger. They're you know the younger ones will come in so quickly on you. The older ones will, you know, they pull tricks. Just deer alone, they won't come straight at you. They'll actually work their way around you to try and figure out what you are if you're actually another deer. Um, so, you know, when it comes to call blasting a wild animal, or using calls in general, I'm not big on it. Um, I've seen too many situations where it's been more of a deterrent, not a deterrent. It just didn't work out, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I know I've seen tons of videos of, you know, the guys with the elk sheds and they're,
yeah,
you know, ruffling those up and this huge elk comes out of nowhere right up to their practically their faces. And
yep.
you're like, whoa, you know, how fair is that? That's what
Well, I
I
mean,
think. I'm like, that's not fair. You're tricking them.
yeah, in a roundabout way, but you know, the great big ones don't get um, great big because they're stupid. You know, like I said, they'll use.
That's true.
You will find, you know, great big ones that'll, you know, circle you. They will go downwind. They will do all kinds of stuff you wouldn't expect. Um, Now, you know, I can't say I know that much about elk by any stretch of the imagination, but um, I think with elk, they're different in that the the is it? I'm not sure if somebody can tell me if it's true or not, but you know, is it a buck elk, cows, bulls? Okay, that the bull is trying to keep his herd of cows together, and so what
Mhm.
they're doing is they're trying to make the bull think that one of the cows are getting away or somebody's sneaking up on his cows.
Yeah.
So you know, and it's and even that's a special kind of language to learn. And turkeys, on the other hand, you know, you go to turkeys, which is a simple bird, but it's got so many vocalizations
Yeah.
that you know you can really mess up a turkey hunt just making a wrong call.
Oh, wow. Like,
But,
thanks, Deb. Um, so interesting enough, this last time I was out with Scott from Squatch America, we he put a crying baby sound. It was like midnight, and we put on a crying baby sound out there. That had to be the eeriest, scariest, and I didn't even record it. You know, I was
you
like
know,
so when he just, put it on, and it just echoed where we were at in the mountain,
It,
and chills running up and down, your back, going, holy shit, this is scary, hearing this baby crying out there in the darkness, and thinking that would definitely bring something in, that could bring something in who was curious. It was this baby crying out there. And I don't know why, it just happened so fast. I didn't catch it on video, but it was really like, I don't think I could do that again unless I'm with a group of people. I would never call blast by myself. There's no way. It was actually after that something was coming down the mountain behind me.
Yep.
And I jumped out of my seat, and I'm like, yeah, something is
there's
right
also a
there.
secondary effect of call blasting too. When you're call blasting or making calls, you get specific. And what I mean by is, if you're out there and you're making calls for deer, you're getting specific that it's a deer coming, and it ends up being a coyote. If you're out there making calls for turkey, once again, you think it's a turkey coming, but it's a coyote or a bobcat. If you're out there making Bigfoot calls, you're priming yourself. Where's Leon when you need him, right?
Right.
You're priming yourself for that to be a Bigfoot that, is reacting to you. And that's another reason why I don't wood knock, because you don't know, this time of year, if you're out wood knocking or whatever, chances are all you're hearing is a walnut fall or an acorn fall.
Right.
But you've primed yourself to think that's a reaction.
You do. Now, I had primed myself all day because up on that hill, we had seen, Anthony and Adeline had seen bear poop prints, just 50 yards up on the hill there. So my mind the whole time was bear and elk, because we had seen lots of elk sign in that area too. So my first thing was bear or elk was coming down in that brush behind us, but I jumped up with the big light, and I'm shining the light everywhere trying to see what's going on. And Kyle went running up all the way up there until I yelled at him, asking him, do you even have a bear spray on you? And he's like, no. I go, well, why did you run up out there without any protection? Get back over here.
Apparently,
So
yeah, you haven't heard about Whitehall yet, so yeah. Yes, I had a moment, so we just leave that for later. So I've already talked about it, but
so yeah, you have to be careful out there. You're in their territory, the animals, the known animals, you're in their territory for sure. So that call blasting is super eerie, and yeah, I don't think I'll do that without a mess of people around.
I have no, I don't take any offense to anybody else that does it. That's if that's what you're doing, okay, that's cool. But I
don't think you need to do it hours at a time, because I've heard people just put that on and just leave it on for an extended amount of time, and I'm like, I don't think you need to do that. If you're gonna do it, play it and you turn it off and then you wait.
Well, that's a thing about this, is that you need, with approaches, you actually do need a multiple different approaches. I'm very passive in my approach, meaning that I'm listening for wood knocks, not making them. I'm listening for sounds, not making them. I want to keep my footprint as small as possible in the woods. And maybe that works for me. Now, does it work for the subject? Well, it could, but at the other time too, if you get active, you get very active with like the call blasting or the wood knocks and whatnot, and you can get a reaction, or some form of reaction.
Right.
And you, like I said, you really need to have a mix in there. I think, especially in this field. But to date, I haven't had to do anything to get um, any suspect reactions.
Yeah. So all these protocols, I think it's best that if you're in a group that you talk about it with your members and,
Mhm.
let's try to do things this way so that we can maintain some type of a consistency,
Mhm.
of how you gather. If you're going to look at prints. Okay. Are you
Yeah.
looking for impact ridges or are you looking for compression lines to try to tell the difference between bear and human prints?
Mhm.
Are you doing consistent measurements? Are you measuring toe to heel or are you measuring toe to toe? Or are you know, eh, because stride lengths and all this, there are different type of measurements out there. And
Right.
I've found that different groups do it differently.
Yep.
So, oops.
If, if you
If we
look
can,
up stride, you're going to come up with like multiple different answers on how to measure stride, which is
yeah,
mind-boggling. But and gait.
right.
If you look up gait, you're going to come up with multiple different answers for gait, which is also mind-boggling. Um, but you get into something like that, um, you definitely going to be documenting. Um, and really, if you find anything, the documentation process can, just go through the roof with what Jonathan removed off my truck. Now we don't know exactly what it was. All right,
Uh-huh.
whether it's it some kind of it looked like something that touched the truck. Um, sounds like a quick and easy process to remove it, right? But that process took a good 3 to 4 hours to do it correctly, or in the way Jonathan was doing it.
Wow.
And Jonathan was, um, he looked like a pro the way he was going. Um,
Yeah.
now, I imagine if you're actually a forensic, uh, I don't know, if you're actually, I don't, forensic analyst, I don't know what the heck they call them. Yeah, you might be able to do that quicker, but we captured, you know, everything off of that. And um, now, I'm not saying it's going to go anywhere. I'm just saying we found something kind of strange on the truck. So it was like, you got to make a decision at that point. Do we
Mhm.
treat this as something or do we treat this as a nothing burger? And if you walk by in the wrong answer, of course, is to treat it as a nothing burger. Because off that, you know, 0.00001% chance that it could actually be something of substance. Um,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got to take it.
Exactly. It only takes one to find the right thing, but we've found so much of nothing, I guess. And for some people, that's all they need, to substantiate their sighting or their search is that, okay, I found prints. I believe they look like uh, Sasquatch prints, Bigfoot prints. They don't appear to be bear. They don't appear to be this or that. And that's what they take as their evidence to continue the search. Um, People are out there and they hear weird things out in the wilderness, and that's their take. That's their motivation to continue looking for this creature. Everybody
Mhm.
has their own motives and their own direction they go with this stuff, and none of it's wrong. It's
Nope.
not put down in the Bible there saying this is how you're going to believe or whatever, because it's not. It's whatever you um find to draw you to this to this phenomena. So the next thing was one of the protocols that I think a lot of people can get wrong, okay, is especially with witnesses who have nothing to do with Bigfoot, is size referencing. How big was this creature? You know, was it 6 foot, 7 foot? You know, how when you're seeing something, people tend to get tunnel vision immediately, focused on this thing instead of, well, where's the tree next to it? Was there a tree next to it? Was there a stump? Was there something you could use for size comparison so that later you can go back and possibly help get a truer estimate of how big this creature is? And I know MABRC does size referencing. They, say if you do see something, be sure to get your surroundings so that you know exactly where it was and help get, because frankly, witnesses will see something and say it's, 8 or 9 feet tall and it's
Mhm.
6 or 7. And that's a natural thing,
Yeah.
actually, that happens out there. But in our world of Bigfoot, it can make a big difference on what you're looking at, you
Yep.
know.
And that
Um,
doesn't just happen, with Bigfoot sightings. Trust me, it happens with deer hunting and hunting in
right,
general. The animal ends up being massively large and in the moment, and then you come to find out no, it wasn't. You know,
right.
and yeah, you're absolutely right. That happens quite a
You
bit.
know, people even do what's it called? Forced comparison or forced, where you stand behind the image so that the elk looks bigger. You're actually like 2 or 3
Oh,
feet behind your, uh,
you're
what's that
talking about when
called?
you hold a fish out like this.
Yeah, so that it looks like you have this enormous fish. That kind of stuff happens, and it
I've
happens all
got
the
the
time.
world's largest soda can here.
Yeah. um, Forced perspective. Thank you, Jen. Yes, that's the perspective I was trying to think of. So you never know, that could happen, But if you have a group, I think it's best that that's something that you teach your members, well, if something does happen, if you see a coyote running by and you say, "Whoa, this sucker was big," well,
Mhm.
how big? Well, I don't know, size of a dachshund or a size of a greyhound or a size of what, how big? So, let me see. I didn't realize I had those pictures. What was next? Something else. Let's see. The whole thing that really irritates me is people who post photos. Okay. And these are, photos of a Bigfoot out there, and they don't show you how big it is. They don't show you the pictures they took before or after, or pictures of nothing there, or pictures of them there to help compare, and I think that's a big deal too, is that the recreation of photos or videos, I think, is a really important part of having that protocol set into your group. That
Yeah,
if you're going to say, well, this is really an interesting photo, that there are some, actual investigative photos to go with that,
yeah.
you know.
I know. I carry like 3 tape measures and then a laser rangefinder, and
Uh-huh.
whenever he'll come down in the short yardage range, and anytime we do come across something suspect, we definitely have measuring devices that you can lay out and actually see.
Mm-hmm.
And then, going back to other things that nowadays you can do a complete 3D image of the site if you want.
Right.
You can pull out your phone and just start going around in a circle. There's 3D images of whole office rooms available that you can go in and take a look at that people just done with using 3D imaging apps.
Yeah. So you were talking about collection of, latent prints and stuff like that. And the MABRC actually has like a 2-page, where am I over here? Protocol for how to collect latent prints, and I'm not sure that groups have that. I don't know who bothers to do that, to make sure that this is the standard that we should have, because I think a lot of stuff gets pushed off as, well, you didn't collect it properly, so it's probably contaminated, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't record yourself collecting the evidence, and the whole chain of evidence has just been destroyed right from the beginning. And this is just talking about the scientific part stuff, guys.
Yep.
Not, if you're not on that train of science matters, if science doesn't matter, then it'll never matter to you. So, but coming from talking about the research, and people really trying to find valid evidence, then I think these things make a difference. It makes a difference with everything that's listed here on in front, how to shelter evaluations. People are always claiming that the stick structures out there are valid evidence that Bigfoot exists, or that Bigfoot has created these stick figures out there in the woods for them, or their homes for or what was the last one I heard? Their nurseries for the juveniles or toddler babies or whatever, and or the big ones that you can't reach. They have to be Bigfoot, right? The big tree structures, that has to be Bigfoot did that, because no man could do that. But having those set of protocols for your group, I think, is a good thing to show this is how we rate these. Some type of system, that, okay, this can be done by a human. This doesn't weigh in our evidence as much as this. What's your idea about stick structures and teepee structures and all of that?
You know, there is a lot of chaos in the woods. And I have seen half broken trees 20 feet up in the air, diagonally being held up by vines. I have seen stick structures that were made by man. In fact, I sat in one when I shot, took or harvested a turkey.
Uh-huh.
And, I usually, to me, the big structures I don't find interesting. I find simple structures interesting. Something that has, a reference in the world that makes interesting sense, with like hoops. A lot of people talk about hoops and whatnot. I
Yeah.
find them interesting. I'm not saying that they're made by Bigfoot, but the reason that I find them interesting is that, that kind of phenomenon is also in hunting land management, for a thing called hinge cutting, where,
Uh-huh.
we hinge cut the tree about 2 or 3 feet up, leaving it attached to the stump so the tree stays alive, but the tree falls over. And what that does is that provides, I can't think of I want to say delicious. That's not the right word. That provides deer access to a food source that they really like. Maple leaves, sugary maple leaves. We
Uh-huh.
That's actually a practice. And so when I see these hoop structures, that's about as far as I find them interesting if they haven't been, something that logically happened. Tree fell over on it, pinched it
Uh-huh.
down, and it grew in place like that. Or I think the other one that I found really interesting, I had found for a while was trees broken off. And again, I don't know why these are happening. I can't say that it's attached to anything. But when I'm finding trees that are broken off in that 23 to 33-inch range consistently, uh, same type of tree. I live in town and there's a deer outside my camper. I don't know why I drive an hour and a half right there, but uh, I found that interesting because I started finding these breaks and blowouts that every time I'd find one, I would look at it and then I would find it pointed towards a piece of my equipment. And I haven't been doing the Bigfoot thing I've only done it for 2 or 3 years now. But in hunting, I've been doing that for like 45 years.
Uh-huh.
And that the only time I've ever seen this is in this area where I have long-term material, and I just I can't explain it. It should, finding if it was caused by a tornado or wind shear, it should be in the same direction as the wind shear travel. But no, this kind of stuff I'm finding 90 degrees, and it just usually a far distance apart where I'm finding this over and over, and a lot of it looks. I find it interesting because to me, it's either like what I would call a rail in establishing a boundary. Okay, I want to establish a boundary to keep myself in the zone that I'm walking through an area or whatever,
Yeah.
or it's a, a signaling device. I don't know. I can't explain it, and I don't understand. I mean, the trees look pretty healthy, but they just look like something snapped them at that
Right.
range, and I don't understand why. And that bright, and the other part that I find interesting about that is that you have it being consistent with the same type of wood. Now, is there an insect? Is there something going on with that material, the wood, that's causing this? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to
Yeah.
find a valid reason for it. But that
You
bright white,
definitely see structures, and if there's wood in that structure that just should not be there, that's a
mhm.
red flag. There's so how did that get there?
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
you have a stand of pine and in the middle there's an aspen. What the heck? How did that get up there? Where did it come from, number one? You know?
I would,
And it is
I would
possible.
say probably the most, and like I said, it's a very basic structure. Probably the most interesting structure that I've ever ran into was in West Virginia, and it's not like the stick structures and all that. It just,
Uh-huh.
I climbed up basically the face of a hill, and once I got up there, I turned around and I started realizing that there was wood there set up in a blind that, for no apparent reason other than it was looking down on where we were, and the
Mhm.
wood that was there did not come from that area.
Right.
So I thought that's the only other time where I kind of scratched my head. But like I said, it's usually simple structures that um, make me question. But I'm still not like, that could have been like the neighbor spying on, the homeowner or something. I don't. There's so many reasons things
Right.
could be out there in the woods.
Um I thought I had printed out all the possible things it could be in regards to tree structures of the stuff it could be. It could be a hunter's blind, it could be the Boy Scout stuff, it could be the wind, it could be all kinds of different things that you have to look at that could contribute to something, out there, gathering forestry. I mean, they gather all kinds of stuff and, fire, what do they call it?
Where they're
When they're
removing fuel off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, to our north there is a place where we like to go hike, and they'll go through and you'll see those like teepee structures all over the place, and those are made by the patrons, and they're doing it just to clean up the forest.
Yeah, for
So
sure. So, let's move into the tactics part. When you're out there, are there things you do specifically that you always do because you think it could be a great idea of trying to capture that Sasquatch coming into camp or coming into your area? For example, many people, and also the MABRC, they have a tactic of spool of thread that they, will loop around. Some people put little bells on there that when broke, it sets off a little alarm. A lot of people have set up battery operated alarms that really ding when the fishing line is broken or what have you. And I knew of oh gosh, what's that guy's name? Um he used to set up the fishing line, and he used to hold on to the end and just sit there until something tugged on his hand, then he would get up and go see what it was. So that's kind of intimidating. I don't think I could do that, but there is also this idea of uh, sitting around a campfire, the campfire tactic, where everybody's, you all gather around a fire, but the idea is that when you're sitting around the fire, you're paying attention to the stuff behind the person across from you, and vice versa.
Yeah.
The person in front of you is watching your back, and you're watching that person's back, and you're watching for eye shine and movement and noises. And that's your area to concentrate on. I think that's a general tactic that a lot of us, do, but it, should be kind of like a bylaw. Everybody should be protecting everybody out there around the fire, because I know I jumped up pretty dang fast when I heard something behind me this last time, and when I heard something at Mount St. Helens, and I moved my butt to the other side of the fire pit really fast when that happens.
Well,
So
I was just looking around to see if I had any in here, but I think they're all in the back of my truck. So I've been investing in those electronic alarms that you're talking about. They can be set for either plunger pull, they pull on a fishing line, sets them off, or they have a motion detector on them. You can get, and those worked. I also have another proximity area that I put out with just it's a driveway alarm that you can hook up 5 sensors to.
yeah.
That's fairly cheap. I've been using those. That did go off on us up in Whitehall. Now I don't know. I mean, that had to do a lot with that purchase that I went into. That also had a lot to do with there was something in our camp in New York. There was something and there was someone in our camp. How do I know? Because they took my stuff.
Yeah.
And we waited around and we filed a police report for it that day. So I've invested, not only, you're thinking Sasquatch, but the more and more you go down that, you start, finding out, there's the barrel arms, these things that I'm using here, I can just hook them on the door handle of the truck. About drove everybody crazy at Whitehall, but there was no way I was going to leave my truck unattended. We had them around the tent, and that's where the one story comes from. That 4 o'clock in the morning, something, Mrs. T says something brushed the tent, and then that prox alarm went off at 4 o'clock, and so I went running out there, but chasing whatever it was with the lantern, and realized how stupid that was. So, yeah, those tactics. There's another tactic where you take a chem light, you leave it in the wrapper, you break it to start it, and then you put a fishing line on the end of the wrapper, and you kind of tie off the wrapper on the end. So if
Oh,
something pulls or causes a trip line to pop, it'll pull that chem light
yeah.
out of its sheath, and that'll give you a visual clue that something just went across there.
That is cool. See, that's something I'd never thought of doing or setting up anything like that. And you always have chem lights out there, they're
Mhm.
for emergencies or whatever. And
Yep.
sometimes I like to pop them and put them next to my um latrine,
Yep. Yep.
out there so that it's constantly lit up over there. But
And you also have these barrel arms now that you can get that you attach to a tree. Um, I don't know if they're overkill or not, but I think if anything, these things off. Um, you may or may not know it. I mean, I slept through everything that happened that night. But these you actually insert a 12 gauge blank into,
mm, mhm.
and you can just imagine how loud that would be.
Dang,
Um,
yeah.
and that's also with tripwire or um, braided fishing line is what I use. It's very hard to see.
Yeah.
So, but tactics wise, yeah. Boy, there's
Yes, Kim. That's what I was
so
thinking of,
many
Robert.
things.
Um, so yeah, tactics, right? I mean, I know a lot of people who also the last person up stokes the fire, doesn't necessarily put it out unless you're in a real dry situation, then you put it out before you go to bed. But we stoke the fire, right? So that you can get tucked in, and when that starts to go out, they feel more comfortable to come in and possibly, check out the camp.
Mhm.
Stuff like that. My idea is that at some point somebody should be hiding in a blind somewhere when all that happens so that, you have somebody up all night watching the camp to see what happens. And
Well,
it's interesting. It would be interesting to compare notes of somebody awake in a tree or whatever looking at camp and somebody
mhm.
in camp saying, "Oh my gosh, did you hear that? Something went by, my tent or brushed by, or I heard something walking." And, the next day the guy's going, "Yeah, you had a pretty big skunk walk by your tent last night," or, who knows what. But I don't hear of that many groups doing stuff like that of keeping one person awake all night.
And it depends upon the size of your group, um, and how many. Because if you have I don't know if you want to call it fire watch or Bigfoot watch,
Mhm.
having somebody up and then going through and taking turns, keeping an eye on camp is not a bad idea at all. Usually we're in a small group,
Yeah.
and what I've been doing more often than anything else is taking the thermal camera and mounting it somewhere because it's the most passive thing that I have. You know, not IR, but the thermal, and the thermal will run 8 hours. It'll run all night long, and just having the thermals out and just watching lanes seeing if anything comes up from the area that is the most likely avenue of approach, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot more of that when I can. Let's see.
Another tactic is the light tactic. And I think this is a good one because Brent does this and he streams up a whole mess of lights out there in the darkness. And his idea is that we're never going to really find them walking out there in the dark, but we could interest them and possibly bring them into us by giving them something to look at, hence he strings up lights
Yeah,
all over. And it's quite the sight, and it's quite at first it's like intimidating, like you know you're bait. You're out there and you're kind of
yeah,
like bait, so that it has that kind of effect until you get used to being with that stuff. I don't know how Jen felt about it the first time she saw all those lights out there, but you get comfortable with it, of course. And it's kind of eerie, it's kind of eerie. And he leaves them up all night long. Of course, he puts um, trail cams and audio out and hopes that it attracts something to come in. But the main thing I think is to try to get the interest of the Bigfoot to follow you back to your camp, not just staying
yeah.
out there in the woods, but to bring them closer.
When you're talking about, the tactics and so forth, I mean, you're kind of going, you're almost going into advanced class because when you get down into the tactics, what you're actually doing is you're hunting for an unknown. So you're using a lot of hunting tactics in a roundabout way, whether it's being on stand, being up in the air, watching large swath of area. And
Right.
I agree with Brent because in my experience over 45 years walking, um, I can't recall ever once having any success on the walk. And then if you go into something like with a grouse, where they wait for you to almost step on them before they flush, and you're out by yourself without a dog,
Yeah.
um, I never, where you get the crap scared out of you every time one takes off. Um, you never do get around fast enough to take a grouse. But I do agree with Brent. I think that walking, talking, running with lights, whether it's at night, daylight, or whatever, um, you're at the disadvantage.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Non-pyro surface trip flares. Holy cow. Trip flares. That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Pretty hardcore.
And some of the other things too. If you're, I said we always when it was talking about stalking. When it comes to like if you're stalking through the woods or whatever, which is basically what you're doing when you're walking through the woods at night. You're trying to make contact. You know, the basic premise has always been in hunting that if you're moving slow, you're going too fast. And you get into that. Overwatching lanes, which is what I used to do with the camcorders. I would find an opening and I put that camcorder in that lane and watch it all day. I like that is nice because you can actually go through the material pretty quickly. Um, Nowadays that you have the spotting scopes with the phone with magnetic phone mounts, you can slap your phone right onto it and you can watch open lanes from a far off distance. And
Uh-huh.
they're doing that in like Costa Rica and everything with the the birds that they can't get up close to or get.
Oh.
Um, so that was another thing that Gary Reed came out with. He didn't really come out with, but he chased it down. He spent the money and got himself a Kiowa Arcola spotting scope, and then got the magnetic phone mount and everything.
Uh-huh.
And he watches stuff from a long distance as well as everything else. The fireplace stuff, yeah, it does seem like something does seem to be attracted to when you're sitting around the campfire, and if having stuff out there watching, it doesn't seem
Mm,
to affect the animals for some strange
right.
reason. But,
Well, you
as you
have
said,
claims of people who have been bluff charged, and rock thrown at them,
yeah,
and tree shaking, limb breaking, wood knocking, vocalizations, even sticks. Was somebody had a stick thrown at them? Who was that?
yeah,
I can't remember who. It was Squatch America. Hannah had a stick thrown at her, and she was hit with it. And of course, the goal was what? To have one stare down at you and to
right.
capture that. But most people who have had those incidents don't capture it on video. And I'm not sure I would either, because I would be scared stiff. I think I'm gonna freeze if I ever have that experience. My instinct is gonna be to completely freeze up. So,
Um, I know that so far I've gotten hit in the back by what I don't know, because it's pitch black, and that I found that unnerving. And then I got hit a couple times, and that was in West Virginia. I got hit a couple times out in New York. And I always found myself like in West Virginia. It couldn't have been a ricochet because we was right next to a hillside. We was on the apex, so nothing ricocheted and nailed me in the back. But in New York, where I got hit twice, that could have been a ricochet of, like, I don't know, a beech nut or something, an acorn
right.
dropping, and they do ricochet quite a bit. That the next night in Whitehall, where um, it felt like I got touched through the tent. I was still trying to figure that out, whether it was like a group of oak leaves had fallen down when I crossed or whatever. I will say that it did woke me up. It kept
Yeah.
me wide awake there for a while. So, I mean, when it's pitch black, anytime something happens out of the normal and you don't really can verify the source, and it can be very very scary, very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So you get into that thing of being in control of the moment versus the moment having control over you. So it's always like a very razor edge type thing,
Yeah.
because that moment can take you over something fierce, like right now.
It can. A
It
lot of
can.
things can make you stop and be like, what was that?
Hmm.
Which way did that come from? And there has been incidents where you and I, Brent, we're like, where did that come from? I'll say here, you say there. You say,
Yeah.
you can't triangulate where we know something happened. We know we heard something, but where it came from, we don't know,
No.
So it, depending on where you're standing and how things echo in the forest and make sounds,
Yeah.
it changes, and I don't know. That's where the good equipment comes in handy, when you have somebody who has good audio.
1 second.
Okay. He's gonna refill stuff up there. But so all of this stuff, it's intimidation, could be intimidation from Bigfoot if they're throwing rocks and all this stuff to see what you would do. If you're Kyle, you throw rocks back. We had that incident happen. I think he was throwing it at an elk, but I don't know. So, let's see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, like when we was out in British Columbia, where's that at? Okay. And what this is that's the Zoom M3, right? Which shotgun mic, 390, or excuse me, stereo 90 on both sides, 270 degrees if you want it. Records in upper levels, but up north, when we was in New York, I was using this primarily as a shotgun mic because, like, when you and me had that conversation in British Columbia on that Deer Lake Trail, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but I've been trying to get a good copy of that audio. But there's just so much ambient sound,
Right.
So my hopes are with this that I can get that shotgun effect, and I can really zoom in and pull it out. Is it something?
Yeah.
And these here, I've really been impressed with this so far. It's not much more than H1N, but you can record up to 1 terabyte of sound on this thing. It can record alone. It can record with your video camera, and the sound out of it has been absolutely amazing. For all the more that it's been, and that's been a huge thing for me, is trying to figure out what the heck is making that noise. I want to find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like I was telling you, I've heard that in Florida, I've heard that in New York, I've heard that in West Virginia, I've heard that now in British Columbia. Trying to get a good recording of it and chasing it down, even if it's just a bird, even if it's just an owl or something making a certain call. That doesn't bother me a bit, because at least I got rid of the variable.
Right.
And
well, it's all about trying different things, and maybe something's gonna work, something's gonna come out of it that's gonna really excite you about evidence, and keep on going with this stuff. Whatever is making noise is extremely close to you in the woods. Yeah.
to a degree, it's being able to see it. Because, like, the very first time I ever heard of whoop, right? I'm just sitting on my four-wheeler rendering a 3D image, and out of nowhere I hear this slight little whoop, and now chasing that down, what is making that sound? And sound, it depends upon how much power you get into it. We ran into a situation in New York. Was it New York? No, it was Florida, where we heard a wood knocking, and in listening to it.
Thank you, Rabbit.
Thanks, Rabbit. And in listening to that wood knock, it didn't sound like anything. Just like a low tick.
Yeah.
Then I take the camera out of the housing that I was wearing, and that's a tactic too. Before we get talking about from Matt Larson, that distant, faint wood knock sounded like a hammer being taken to that camera. And that's another thing that I've been chasing down, trying to figure out, okay, is there actually something going on here as far as, is there really truly something going on there, putting two different cameras, one in a case, one without a case, and just setting them out there to where, could that case be causing some kind of material slowing down of the frequency to where you're actually able to hear it better. I don't know how to truly explain it, but I just found it bizarre, and that's another one I've been chasing down.
Yeah. And and so much so you do it more than anybody, is really track down and deep dive into some of these sounds you're hearing out there. Some wouldn't do that, you know. I don't have the patience for that. I know that. So, you know, I kind of rely on the people who do deep dive into all the audio stuff. And I find it intriguing, but it's just not my cup of tea to go down and sit
Mhm.
there and listen to it. I can't even tell you how long it took me to finish listening to just 8 hours of audio from one night,
Yep.
and you know, back and forth and rough notes. I literally had I don't even know if I still have them here. I had sticky notes written with stuff like me, the elk. There was an elk. There was I heard Scott snoring, and then I heard, you know, a rock or something ping the side of the truck that night. I don't know what it was. Okay, but it could have been me moving, and it just tinged. I heard the dog from way far off in
And
Anthony's
that's a,
tent when he shook his ears, you know, it has that ching ching. I
yep.
heard the dog's ears. I heard a gunshot. Um,
And,
at
and that's a
5 in,
big part of that learning curve.
you know, that's how loose my things is. I put everything down on this stuff. So it does take a lot of time to do this stuff.
And I have been able to make contact with a couple other, um, 'cause, you know, a lot of times the sound guys kind of work together. So, you know, you can go talk to a sound guy, not with a huge file. If you hand somebody a huge file,
Yeah.
not going to happen. But if you hand them a clip, they'll take a listen to it and come back. And so the sound guys really do a good job working back and forth with each other on that. Um, there are, you know, I've been able to make contact with some uh, other libraries that, you know, are outside of like the Collie Sound Library and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
have been able to make some contact with some of those. They've been very helpful on a few different items. But you know, a lot of with the audio and listening to audio and stuff, and then trying to figure out exactly what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. And you, when you come to the realization that you can't say you can't. Yes, you have this great audio. You have the greatest audio in the world. You've got something um, talking in phonetics out there that doesn't sound anything even remotely human. Sierra sounds or whatever.
Mhm.
You can't really associate it with anything because it's just a sound. You know, you don't have a visual connection, or you know, you don't have that depth of. You need that depth. You need, you know, not only do you have the sound, you've got, you know, maybe some prints, maybe some sampling or whatever. You really need to go after that depth when you find it, or you can look at it in a different aspect, and then now that you have the sounds, um, you can focus in on
Well,
that area.
we just don't know, right? And it's just
Yeah.
adds on to the evidence. It adds on to the intrigue and gets you still wanting to do more and more. It's creepy though, I'm telling you, you know, even when you do know sounds, you know, all you
Hmm.
hunters out there who have heard all the animals of the forest, don't you still get a little creeped out every now and then with sounds out there in the night, in the dark? I mean, come on. I know.
Absolutely, because there are sounds out there that I guarantee guys that have been hunting for a long time haven't heard. Um, you know, you usually get like I'll get a dog head tilt whenever I start telling people about the whitetail roar because they do roar, and if they roar right next to you or underneath you, however you want to say it, it'll make your hair stand on end. Because it almost sounds like a red stag. Just
Oh,
it
no,
if
thank
you
you.
fortunately, they don't do that all the time. They'll do that during a rut, you know, when they've got themselves when a doe's with them. Um, fortunately, you don't hear that very much, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. They don't always do that sound like the juvenile barred owls. The juvenile barred owl sound. You only hear that a couple months throughout the year.
Is
Like we
that the
did up
screaming
in BC.
up there in BC, right? Was
Yeah.
those they're horrible. And they fought it screaming at us as we're going by, you know.
Yeah.
It's super eerie. It's like Halloweeny, you know, screeching at you. But
And then you'll get to the barred owl scream. Because basically what happens is juveniles drive the parents insane because they're always constantly asking for, they're asking for money or food, just like at home. No! And then the parents just lose it and they yell at the kids like, leave me alone. And when they scream, and I've played that scream several times in a couple different videos, if you don't know what that is,
yeah.
you'll think it's a Bigfoot screaming at you.
Uh, I know what elk bugles sound like. I grew up with that sound. I know exactly what it is, but it is still so eerie to hear that in the middle of the night going off, you know, nearby. Because I had a couple that were really super close that night. And the way we're on the mountain, you know, it really echoes because you're in these little dips and valleys up on the top of the mountain, and it echoes so crazy. So anybody out there, if you've never heard of elk bugle, please go on YouTube and listen to some of that, because hearing that in the darkness is like crazy. But
One thing I do want to add before I forget,
yeah,
if you're going out here and you're doing this stuff, always have at least 2 cameras running, 2 audio devices running. Okay, and if you're with multiple people, ask them to do the same. I always wear the camera up on my head like Matt Larson advises. And that's because when something happens, it usually happens off your left or your right. And if you're holding the camera, your body is going to freeze. All right. Because you don't use your body to address a stressor. You use your eyes, your ears, your nose, sometimes even your sense of taste. And you're going to turn and you're going to assess that stressor. All right. So, and I've shown that quite a few times that, this camera will move and it will nail whatever's causing the stressor. I'll
yeah,
look straight at it,
yeah,
but the camera in my hand, it won't do a thing. And that's
yeah,
because your body, okay, this part is addressing the stressor, whatever's causing your stress. The body is preparing for fight or flight. And,
yeah.
it's getting ready to pump that adrenaline. In my case, I usually get about 2 running steps before I realize, who am I kidding? I got to turn around, But, and
Sure.
with audio sources, always have 2 audio sources going on. And it could be one of the cameras. We have seen time and time again with audio where you think you have something and you don't, and it has to do with the physics of sound. I've said multiple times on the show, I walked off the road one night. I listened to the audio. I thought, holy crap. I've got Bigfoot making all, infrasound, because all you hear is this. When I check the other audio recordings, it turns out it's actually Mrs. T going, that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's really weird, because if you get an audio distortion because of the physics of sound, the physics of
Yeah.
the pneumatics of air, she often sounds like a guy and I often sound like a female. And I had that happen one time where I spun around, and I thought for sure I had this disembodied female voice.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and when I got to check the other audio recorders, yeah, it was just my voice. It's just the act of the fact that um, your you're moving away. So I'm talking, if I'm moving away from the mic, I'm
Yeah.
kind of stretching out those sound waves, those pressure waves, and that'll cause a distortion on the microphone. This an H1N. Same thing can happen if you're running towards it. You're compressing those sound waves, and you can cause a distortion. And that's why you always at least 2 different audio sources. Unless you have a standalone audio source out there, then you have to be aware that if you're recording audio, it could simply be a mouse running by and having the same effect on your audio source.
Yeah. You hear crazy stuff, and it's usually you moving around, like me with my little alarm. I have a little alarm and a measuring tape that I hang off my backpack so that they're handy right away, right? But when you move, they clink on each other. And it was making this sound off to my right, and I kept like, what is that? And then I'd go a little further and it would clink, and I was, dang, you guys hear that? But it was me the whole time. Every time I moved, I was clinking those 2 things together. So
I kept forgetting I was pulling that plastic bag in British Columbia.
Yeah.
Twice I thought somebody was right behind me. Here was that stupid plastic bag I was dragging. I'm trying to collect
Brent
air.
would say, look out, because the mountain lions like to stalk the last person in line. I was like the last person in line, and I'm like, oh yeah, you had to say that. But so and it's scary to look back into the darkness, and hope you don't see something coming at you or something lurking back there.
I know. One night I was walking out of the woods alone, and I don't know why it was so dark, but when I'm hunting, I just wear a very small clip light. Again, I like as small a footprint as I can get. And I turned and I looked, and oh man, I thought it was 2 eyes staring right back at me about human height. And I about come unglued. And then once again, that fight or flight thing kicks in, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, who am I kidding? And I turn around and come to realize, all it was a reflection off of a piece of metal that was in the woods. But man, that made my hair stand on end real quick that night.
Yeah, well, I heard a whistle that night too. And I asked Anthony, did you whistle for the dogs to come back into your tent or something? Because I heard a whistle.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, once we went in, the dogs were in for the night. And I'm like, no, that was you. I still don't believe it. I still think it was him. But
did it seem like one of those simple whistles meant to just get your attention? Just a...
It was like like that.
Yeah.
It was and I was like half asleep, and then you go to listen, right, for more, and nothing. So but I did capture it on audio faintly. So
I know one night I was out and I had to get some material out before I wanted to get some equipment out of the woods before hunting gun season came in. And so I got on the land, and my nephew and his buddy's supposed to be there, right? So I head into the woods and get about halfway, and then I get that, like something trying to get my attention, like 3 or 4 feet away. I stop and I spin around. I'm like, what the heck? So I figured it was them guys. So I stood there, I looked around, flashlight. Hey, where you guys at and whatnot? Then I just figured that was them. And I turned and I went on down the trail across the power line. As soon as I crossed the power line, I ran into them. I'm like, wait, what? So,
well, that was a great conversation. I think more groups need to have those conversations together and have those type of things talked about. But let's move right along.
Show me what you got.
Jim, you heard them. Said, show me what you got.
So today, what do we got? This stupid thing popping up all over the internet again. And of course, we all already found out what this was. This was a Muppet that was created by Architusus. Okay, he's on X, which used to be Twitter, X. Okay, but I had everybody had a conversation with this one guy, Bruce, who swore that was a flying fox, right? A big bat. And I mean, he went to the point where I can't believe how many people in this group don't know what this is and know that it's real. You know, you defend all the blurry pictures and God knows what. But when someone posts a real animal, what does it say? You have no idea what you're looking at. Come on, people. It's a giant flying fox. Go look it up. And then he posts pictures, of a bunch of flying foxes and stuff. And many people told him, hey, this was already debunked a long time ago. Architusus put it out there that he had created it in model of a dinosaur and that, it's a Muppet and it's all over his site, and that it was him, that was his thing. So, but why do people, even if a number of people are telling you, hey, that's not real, it's a Muppet, they just don't believe. They just blindly want to believe that, it is what is a flying foxopus. Flying foxopus there, yeah.
That's like
So
that tree octopus.
yeah. And remember, Architusus is the guy who was behind this also the Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine hoax thing that came out recently as well. He created that too, so that's what he does. He creates cryptids. He makes model sizes of them. So be on the lookout. He's got to make more. It's not like he's stopping. He's an artist and he puts his stuff on display and you can go to his, his page or whatever channel and look those things up. So, hey, Bruce, I don't know what to tell you, man. When somebody presents you with a bunch of evidence, what do you, I think you need to. So, oh dang, I was supposed to pull this video up before. Now I don't have it. Have any of you seen this video? I had not seen this video before of a Bigfoot supposedly just sitting in a tree. So let's see if I can pull this up real fast for y'all. I knew there was something I was forgetting to do earlier. Pull up all my videos. Oh, great. It didn't pull up the video. It pulled up this website. Hold on. There it is. Okay, let me get it ready for you. Oops, that didn't do it. Hold on. Make sure I don't have anything crazy up for y'all to see. And we'll share that. And it is, where is it? Here? Okay, I need to take this one down. Oh, it's not going to let me now. What the heck? Let's change that. Okay, here we go. So here's the video.
I think the guy in the hood.
have never seen this. Anybody else see this video out there? That's
No,
painfully terrible. I know, right? It is. Uh,
it looks like
it
a guy
is.
wearing a hood to me.
I don't know if he's got a suit on or what he has, but oops. I just did that twice. Hold on. Stop sharing. There we go. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what that was, but I had never seen it. So if any of you have any information about this, I went to Jack Hensworth. There isn't anything there. Um,
I would
so
be, you know, well, do that. Put that up again, Nikki.
oh, hold on. There you go.
Okay. So, well, okay. At first, I would have said it was a guy hunting in a tree stand, but now um, that does look like possibly maybe IR.
Uh it could be, there could have been a prompt.
But the
And
problem
that,
with it
but
is if
I don't
it's
know. I mean, I think it's somebody in a suit, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think the sound is what makes me believe it's,
well,
it's
the sound seems kind of
fake.
fake, but
Yeah, it's a fake
I would be
because of
more inclined to think that
sound.
maybe it's somebody just put it up because at first I thought maybe it was a hunter.
Yeah.
Sorry, but then I realized your hunting clothing, your blacks, um, it all returns white in IR. So if that's an IR video,
It's
IR image,
Brent. Everybody's saying everything. It's Brent out
and
there. Ooh.
I would
Yeah.
have thought it was. I would have thought it was a hunter, but there's
I'll
something.
try to find more information about
Yeah,
this. I didn't have
something's
much
not
on this
quite
one,
right
but it
there.
was interesting enough to show you guys to see who was out there and had seen this. I got another one for you. Let me see if I can bring this one up. And this is one that's been around before, but it's been making the waves again. And I hadn't done any search on. Oops, that's totally the wrong thing here. I want to share this one. Okay. This one was, ooh, hold on. Now we'll make it big so you guys can see it. It should pop up. Are you seeing it big now? As big as I can make it anyway.
But it all night long. I've got to lift up my bifocals to see.
Oh, so this was the juvenile Bigfoot caught stealing chicken. Okay, video. And I'll just let that kind of run. It's been around too for a little while, but I've never backtracked where it came from or I asked Steve Calls if he had done a debunk video on it. He wasn't sure. Steve didn't think he had yet. And it shows one going by, but there's another Bigfoot straight ahead, dead straight in the middle of that picture. If you're looking at it, there's supposedly like 3 Bigfoot in here. So you'll see one standing by the tree back, right? I don't see a third. I don't see two. So I went trying to find originally print again.
Is it just me, or does it look like it's been antiqued on purpose?
Yeah, it kind of does. Kind of does. But let me go and show you. So I tried to do the whole Google search on it and see what came up. Nothing came up on Google search. I had one or two that it had been shared. One was a sketchy Chinese site, but I ended up the other one linked me to this TikTok from this Crowder's Great Adventures site. He was playing it. And a bunch of people are sharing it, but you know, they're just picking it up and sharing it around and stuff. But I found going through like 800 comments. I sat there and read them. I found this comment here where somebody says, this is a real one for sure. This is a different breed of them into it's a smaller breed, more human-like than super hairy. Good work, man. And Crowder says, yes, sir. Thank you. They are on my property. I've been watching them for 4 years. I just now got a pair of 4K night vision recording binoculars, and it may take a few days, but it's coming. So this creator is pretty much saying that this is his footage that he shared. If you go to his site, he only has like 1 or 2 Bigfoot things on there. The rest has nothing to do with Bigfoot whatsoever. But then earlier, even further back in those comments, because I kept on going, he's asked, how many Sasquatches do you think are on your property? And do you post any videos on YouTube? And he says, I have at least 8 and no YouTube yet. He doesn't have a YouTube channel. And then at the end, he puts, thank you. The chicken stealing video is not mine, but the rest are. And I got night vision recording. So now he's saying that video is not his. So it ended up turning into a dead end. He just stole it, you know, but when that video got traction, because this one came first, this one was a more recent comment that he's claiming is his. So he's a bullshit artist just trying to, you know, get a little recognition. His site doesn't have anything on there. There's a baby deer on game. A Sasquatch snatches a baby deer. You don't see anything but a deer crossing. So, not really a whole lot on there. So it kind of led to a nothing burger there. But it'll be interesting to see who created that, because that's 2 suits, you know, that are out there. And it would be nice to know, you know, if we need to keep an eye out on those. And this was recently sent to me last night, and it made it in here. So Shelly Young, I don't know if anybody knows a Shelly Young out there, but she put out a post saying, hello, everybody. I'm so excited to announce that I have created a new course designed specifically to connect with Bigfoot. Did you know, as elementals, they are very involved with the shift, and I can help guide you through your embodiment process. They are guides that are in the body of multidimensional, just like us, and are working the grids and protecting the planet. So Bigfoot is our protectors. And she is
Shelly Young.
Shelly Young. She is offering a 6-week live course that will be held via Zoom and will be recorded. So no worries if you have to miss a live class. The introductory rate is $200. After this first offering, the price will go up to $300. And she will teach you how to mind speak with these animals. So if you're interested out there in the woo and into mind speak, so to say, hey, connect with Shelly Young. She is connecting with Bigfoot. in her learning psychic communications with Sasquatch class. So I just gave you a little advertisement there, Shelley.
Wasn't that the name of the actress on the sitcom about the bar with Cliff Clavin and Norm?
What?
Yeah, wasn't that the name of the actress that was on that show?
With Norm?
Yeah. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your
Cheers? Are
name.
you talking about
Sure.
Cheers?
Yeah, wasn't that
Oh, it was Shelley
Young?
Long?
Oh,
Wait,
maybe.
wait.
Okay.
Shelley
I
Long,
thought-
yeah.
okay. All right.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
It was pretty close.
Not quite, but pretty close.
Anyway, there you go. It takes all kinds. I don't know. Bigfoot in the news. I forgot to change that picture. Dang it. It's supposed to be Bigfoot headlines. I am changing to Bigfoot headlines from now on because it's so hard to come up with new Bigfoot news. I don't know if you noticed that, but a lot of podcasts that were doing the news have kind of had to change it up because it is hard to come up with new content for those type of shows. But I'm going to come to you with what I find and let you see what's out there. So there was a couple of things on the news circuit, and that was the Park City, Kentucky Bigfoot Festival. Several listings for that. I mean, Amy Boo was there from the Project Zoo book, and also Adam Davies was there. And it looked like a lot of fun. That happened just this past weekend. So maybe some of you got to go to do that. It looked like a lot of fun. Of course, I like Bigfoot festivals and conferences and all those things. I think they're a lot of fun. You just have to take it for what it's worth, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. And then, of course, there was more news and more internet radio stuff about that Bigfoot or big joke. The Oklahoma man's viral Bigfoot sighting leaves internet divided, and it's in direct reference to our Jacqueline's outfit there, but we already found out last weekend it was Big Head Shop had created a advertisement commercial thing for their event, and that's what that was. So we also had the Minnesota Bigfoot conference went along this last weekend. Hey, Jeff, did you go to the Bigfoot conference? No, you didn't. And Sasquatch is beloved entry here. Thousands attend the Adirondacks Sasquatch Festival. So we have all kinds of festival information out there online, as well as the last one, which was Backroads Bill, who is a statue. Let me get the right thing here, what I was going to read. So this week, we follow the remarkable journey of Bigfoot sculpture over the back roads to its eventual home, slowly transported on some back roads. The 1,500-pound, 8-foot-plus vertical sculpture traveled fully exposed for more than 6 hours on a flatbed trailer, and it was a memorable journey like no other, way better than virtual reality, with honks and everybody's thumbs up and waves all the way through town, where it was to reside in the Samuel de Champlain Provincial Park, being its new home for Sasquatch Sam in the Canadian Ecological Center there in Champlain. So that's where this gentleman's going to be residing. So there is your Bigfoot headlines. Oops, I forgot. And last but not least, I have to let you know about Moa. There are going to be some possible showtime changes in the near future. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to try to keep this showtime on Sunday afternoons and maintain it. But this gal is going back to work. Yep.
Uh-oh.
I accepted a position back at the hospital that I worked at a few years ago, and I start on the 21st. So things are happening really fast. This week I'll be doing some certifications, and then to allow me to do other certifications that have all lapsed since I've been gone. So that is what's happening. I am going back to work. Yeah. So times may change, but you know what? I'll make it work. We'll try to have some time in between. Let's move this better. Let's do that. What was that?
Oh,
I don't know what that was about. Sorry. So yeah, that's what's happening with that. And let's see, fun folks, I see all the calls. Yes, calls is in 3 minutes. Squatch DTVs. You all can head right over there. And thanks for coming on, Bill, and keeping me company, talking about this stuff.
A lot of fun.
What? War Eagle says, are these a bad omen for humanity? What, Bigfoot? Or me going to work? I don't know. I don't know. But that was 2 hours. That was fast. It seemed fast. I can smell the kitchen burning over there, though, so I don't know what my kiddos are doing.
Yeah, I keep hearing the deer out. They're snorting right outside the window here.
That would be unsettling. I'm sorry. I'd be like, shoo, get out. For sure. Yeah.
Well, as long as I prefer the deer over the coyotes. So.
Well, thanks again, Bill, for coming on and keeping me company. You guys out there, thank you so much for coming and supporting me in the channel. Please be sure to hit that like button before you leave. Share it out. Tell your friends about me. You know, all right. You gotta subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing.
Don't forget, everybody, jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Jazz hands. Thank you, guys. Love you guys.